it is time for Kane County Speaks here at WRMN, AM 1410, WRMN Radio on YouTube on this beautiful, beautiful morning. And we're entering the summertime. We're entering a busy season for candidates. And we're going to talk about some of that and some of what's going on at the Kane County Board these days. Our friend Brian Anderson, his second episode of Kane County Speaks, here to lead the way. Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Hey, Mark. Good morning. It is great to be in Elgin. And, yeah, it's a beautiful day, 70 degrees, no humidity, perfect up here.
Can't beat it.
Got Lance Bell in the house today, running for Kane County Chair. I'm going to get into interviewing Lance and have him share with your listeners his little bit about his personal background, his professional background, and why he would be a great candidate for the Kane County Chair. But before we get started, just wanted to take a minute or two, get your listeners up to speed. On my last segment, it was a big call to action to the 29th Special County Board meeting at 1:30. It was discussing compensation, whether it be for 4 different elected officials, for the 24 board members, and then most importantly, for the county chairman, Corrine Pirogue, who her VP, Vern Tepe, at one point was soliciting up to $160,000 in her base compensation when she's currently at $105,000.
Yeah.
So here's the good news. We the people, the place was packed, and I would tell you that because of citizen engagement, challenging and encouraging and inspiring, the board did come together. And I saw and listened because I was out of town, but I was able to listen and see through the Zoom. They came together. They froze her pay at $105,000, so she's basically where she's at, which is a good thing. Because going into 4 years, if you look on her past productivity and performance and her leadership, you're like, okay, you're doing exactly what we expected you to do and a little bit less. So no. Your compensation isn't going to change. So anyway, I just wanted to get your listeners up to speed. Thank you for those that came out because of listening on the program. And I will give you another call to action quickly before we get started. June 11th, Big County Board meeting, 9:45. Now, this item is probably not going to be on the agenda. It was on the agenda yesterday at the executive meeting. It was an ordinance put in the last minute. Even some of the Democrats that I reached out to last night, they didn't get the memo until about 24 to 48 hours before the executive meeting yesterday. And it's an ordinance, and it has everything to do with what's called the Roberts Rules of Order and public speaking. Currently, as a citizen, I can go into a board meeting and I've got 5 minutes on an agenda item to speak about and 3 minutes on a non-agenda. In this ordinance, they want to squelch all that. We the people, hey, you're going to get 3 minutes and that's it. And 30 minutes, usually, we're only going to hold it to like 5 people. Why? Now, this is Brian's opinion and Brian's speculation because Brian and other citizens from around Kane County have been actively going to the board meetings for over 15 months. Madam Chair does not like to be challenged. She doesn't like to be held accountable. She doesn't like us challenging the process. And so the best way to do that is to shut up, sit down, and obey. So I would encourage any of your listeners, get to the board meeting next week, sign up on a non-agenda item just to challenge the board members when it is going to be brought up next month. They squelch it immediately and that it dies in committee, that they should continue the public speaking format the way it currently is set up. I could talk about this for the next hour, but I'm not. I want to pivot and spend the rest of this time really having your listeners get a snapshot of Lance Bell. And with that said, good morning, Lance.
Hey, thank you, Brian. Appreciate you.
So before we jump into some heavier questions, just for your listeners, where do you live? Are you single, married, have kids? Kind of get us up to speed.
Way to go there.
Yeah.
My dating profile is, I've lived in South Elgin for 15 years now, and this is my second tour of duty here in Chicagoland. Lived here, I was moved first time 1991, and was here till the end of 1997. And then God brought us back 15 years ago. So we've got a wonderful home in South Elgin. It's where we raised our daughters. And yeah, was there anything else on that question? Married 33 years now.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Wow.
Awesome. Eight daughters and one wife. Let's leave it at that. Yeah.
8 daughters?
8 daughters.
That's correct.
Is that 8 weddings that you've got to pay for at some point?
Well, if called, I would, yes.
Okay.
So far, we've paid for 2. Our daughters range in age to 29 to 19. Okay. And for clarity, the first 2 we biologically brought onto the planet. The last 6 have been brought to us by the state of Illinois. My wife and I are blessed in that we have a specialized foster parent license, and the state of Illinois brings us young teenage females who have special opportunities. I don't like to say needs, they have special opportunities. And it's our job to bring them in. We're a long-term placement. We bring them in and we keep them until they're ready to launch. And so we've been blessed 6 times. And we have one right now. We got her when she just turned 18. We got her through St. Charles North High School, got her graduated, and she's taking her first set of classes at Elgin Community College this week. So our goal is to help her transform into a successful young lady.
That right there, we could spend the rest of the program talking about that. Having a heart of compassion and the interest in pouring into another person. That's mentoring 101, which I love to do. I do a lot of mentoring, and I don't want to get off track, but on Tuesdays for 5 years, I've been going to Wayside Missions downtown Aurora, and I mentor men, broken. We're all broken people, by the way.
Yeah,
and I mentor guys that they've lost it all, and they are trying to find their way back. And so what you and your wife have done, outstanding. Now, here's the big question. Kane County Board Chairman. I always like to ask people, what's your why, right? Why do this? Why did you want to partake in this, let's just call it what it is, local politics? What's the why for Lance?
I often will answer these types of questions with it's a genetic flaw. There's no question. I love to serve. And Brian, one of the things I've learned in life is you receive joy when you're serving other people. And then there are people who chase after happiness, which is fleeting. I just learned to relax and chill in life. And God brings these opportunities to the table. And then it's a process of prayer. It really is. So I'll explain the paradigm shift for me personally. So I've had a lot of friends, good people who left Illinois. They couldn't wait to leave Illinois. It seems like most of my friends go to Nashville, Tennessee for some reason, but I got some in the Carolinas, I got some in Florida, in Texas. So I've watched close people, friends that I care about, leave this state. And it's always the same thing. They get sick and tired of Illinois, what Illinois is come to represent. And as I was one of them, 4 or 5 years ago, I was somebody who hated Illinois. And as I went through this process over the last 15 years, I just started putting the puzzle pieces together. God brought me here. He has me here for a reason. I've got no calling to leave. I have no passion to race down to Florida or anywhere else. I love Kane County, and that was the transition. So it started maybe 5 years ago with I'm going to appreciate what I have. I'm going to appreciate where I'm at. And I'm going to start loving this county. So that opens the opportunities, your eyes up to see what you can do. And then the vision, why is Illinois so rotten, corrupt to the core? Well, it's the political class, the entitled class that's been in control of this state for decades. Why is Illinois at the bottom of the 3 states that are also run by the same entitlement class? There's an opportunity there in regards to leadership. So the door cracked open at that point. Then, specific to this position, I was challenged. I was recruited into this. So the door opened wider about 1.5 years ago when I sat through a Turning Point USA class called Biblical Citizenship and found the true explanation on how our country was formed. The people that came together, our country is 248 years old now, and as far as a country goes, that time in existence is remarkable in human history. We're here because of the Constitution our founding fathers gave us, but there's one thing they didn't give us, that they could have, and that's term limits. The fact that we do not have term limits hurts us at the federal, the state, and the county level. There are people who get into this. It becomes almost like an addiction for them. I call it power lust. As I get into this, I'm here to serve, if elected, the people of Kane County. And I've already declared the first term will just be getting things straightened out in Kane. The second term will be looking for my successor and then leaving to see what else God has in my life. There's too many people in our county that just term after term after term, same position, they're not moving around, they're not doing different things, they just get stuck. So I was called into this, I was recruited into this, and if elected, I'm here to serve, and that's it.
Well, thanks for that. And for me, what caught my attention was the servant leadership. And I don't know if you're any kind of a big fan of Dr. John Maxwell. He was a former pastor and felt the calling of writing coaching and leadership books. He's got, I don't know, probably 26 or 30 books on leadership and development. And that's his phrase. Robert Greenleaf, one of the early founders, probably servant leadership, right? I wrote an article years ago, just because you're a leader doesn't make you one, right? Just because you have that title. And, while we're on that subject, I would say just because Madam Chair is the chair of Kane County doesn't make her a good leader. She's not. I've watched for 15 months, right? And so I love what you said, servant leadership. The other thing I liked you said is, look, and I say this all the time at the board meetings, and I said it yesterday, we can't control what goes on in Washington, D.C. We certainly can't control what goes on in Springfield. The reality is it's a supermajority with Democrats, supermajority. So where can we make a difference? At the local level. Here, local level for us is Kane County. We have a county board. We have a county chairman. And so I believe with the right people in the right seats, with the right vision, doing the right things, they can lead Kane County into where most people want to go, and that is a county that is prospering, growing, flourishing, and all under the great guidance of good financial stewardship, which leads me to my next question. Tell the audience, right, a little bit about your professional background. What have you done over the past 10, 15, 20 years that would position yourself to go, okay, so the guy wants to run, that's great. Anybody that lives in the United States, if I have a desire to run for dog catcher, I can. Doesn't mean I have the experience. So tell the audience a little bit about your professional background that has put you in a position to go, I can lead a county that, it's a pretty big county. It's about $500 million budget. So share with the audience about your professional background.
Absolutely. When you look at leadership, anybody who has somebody in their sphere of influence is by definition a leader. Doesn't make you a good leader, it just makes you a leader. And in fact, I would even say to a teenager has a responsibility to lead themselves. And so part of maturing is understanding what your strengths and what your weaknesses are. And so I came to a level of awareness that I'm a serial entrepreneur. The first company I started, I was 12. And so I've been starting companies and leading people my entire life. So an executive level position is where I find the most success, where my passions align with the opportunity. And so when you look at government, you have 3 branches of government, and they closely correlate to the different personality or behavioral styles. And so we have judges, we have judicial, and they're typically the thinkers. They're the ones that like to analyze, like to write long briefs, like to really dig into the meat. Then you have legislatures. They're typically your socializers and your relators. A lot of them like to talk. They like to give speeches. And I like to say they like to make the sausage. And I have never had a desire to make the sausage. The last group is directors. Directors are your generals, your business leaders. Those are people who are more, it's a balance of strategy and tactics focused. And it's all tied to problem solving. That's really where this comes. When you have awareness, you can see where the opportunities are at. But awareness is just the first step. The next step is putting together plans that actually address whatever that opportunity is. I think as I look at the current chair, even her predecessor had 2 terms. He was in for 8 years. I've been analyzing how was the board run before 2020? How has it been run up to this point in this current term? And success in life, Brian, is managing and setting expectations. And I think a lot of, you alluded to it, a lot of what we've seen over the last year and a half has been ideas, not in conjunction with county government, a lot of stuff out of left field that gets slapped onto an agenda at the last minute. And what I've seen is it's frustrating her own party members. It seems like, well, let's go back to compensation. Every single person on that list got a raise but her. And I mean, that's a judgment right there. When your teammates give everybody a raise but you. In fact, one of the teammates I heard threw out from 105 to 70. Yeah, it was proposed a $35,000 drop in compensation. And again, this is from her party. That's a statement. That's a big statement.
So I like what you said, and I don't want to go off track, but to your point, their board complexion, right? It's 16 Democrats to the 8 Republicans. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, because I've gone to these board meetings almost 15 months, I've built some rapport and some relationships across the aisle with some of the Democrats that will come up and say, I like what you said. You're exactly right. And we do need to do this. What am I alluding to? In confidence, and I would never share the names, she is not liked because she doesn't lead. There's no collaboration. There's no effective communication, right?
Yeah.
One of the Democrats, and you had mentioned Corinne's predecessor, which is Chris Lausen, outstanding guy. This Democrat said, Brian, you knew what you got with Chris. He set expectations like you talked about. Mm-hmm. He had agenda. He had a plan and stuck with it. Yeah. You may not have liked it, but you knew what you were going to get. And so what do most people, and we'll talk about that in a minute because you are a CEO of a company, and I believe you probably have people work with you and report to you. And what is every team member in every company, and even you, Mark, here at the radio station, you're a team member. You're an employee. What does most people want? When people feel valued and valuable, they will run through a wall for you. Yeah. When people do not feel valued and valuable, and you don't collaborate and include them into the conversation, I don't know. That's why people leave jobs. Yeah. I spent most of my career leading and coaching and building teams, and I can tell you, people stick and stay when they feel like they're part of the solution, collaboration, team building. And in politics, you can work across the aisle with the right people. And that's what I'm all about in Kane County, getting the right people in the right seats, doing the right thing. And that starts with the leadership position with the chair role. Now, let me take a breath for a minute. We're just getting into it. Mark, is there any questions that you would have as a taxpayer for the next county chair, like as it relates to what we're talking about right now, leadership? What do you look for in that person?
Well, I just want to first of all say that if you'd like to make a comment or a phone call on the show, that you're listening to Kane County Speaks, for those of you who may have just turned it on. It's 847-931-1410 for Brian and Lance. Lance running for Kane County Chair, 847-931-1410. And we're also on YouTube. And by the way, Andro, who is the head man of the Kane County GOP, says Brian and Lance together, we are in good hands in Kane County. Eric Stairs watching right now on YouTube as well. He's running for Kane County Board. And I don't know. I don't think I could ask any questions that are better than the ones you've asked so far, but I do want to know, what company are you the CEO of right now?
Well, when I got into this last summer, I just spun up a 4th company.
Okay.
And so at the time, I was running 2 for-profit companies, 1 nonprofit organization, and in this new startup. And getting into this, I had to move some of my chess pieces around the board in order to have time to do this. I figured time would be involved, but there's a lot going into all aspects of what we're doing this election season. So I've been blessed for 15 years to be the CEO of a software company called Serving Intel. We create software solutions for the healthcare industry. And typically on any given day, I wake up at 4:45 and I have my first meeting at 5, and I run the software company till about lunchtime. And then I'll transition into my other two ministries, which are politics and marriage, that go through the afternoon and into the evening. So any given day, up and at it by 5, done by 9 or 10, go to sleep, do it the next day. So I'm grateful today. I just have one for-profit and one nonprofit to deal with.
Yeah. Well, I hear the one thing that has stuck with me so far in our conversation, as far as these pay raises are concerned, I didn't realize that she was the only one that didn't get a pay raise. So that is kind of a telling thing that took place over at the Kane County Board meeting.
There's a few aspects of this that the listeners can view objectively. We don't have to have opinions or personalities in this. One of the things you could do is go to YouTube, where all of these county meetings are recorded and posted, and watch YouTube videos of meetings from 2017 and 2018. Even just look at the playlist, and then go to the ones that are taking place over the last 3.5 years. And what you'll see is individual meetings that are lasting 5, 6, 7+ hours long. And that is obscene. If I was a county board member trapped in a seat for 7 hours, I'd poke my eyes out with a butter knife. I mean, that should be torture. I think the United Nations needs to be brought in to analyze our current county board. Now, why is that? The information that's being popped into inboxes at the last minute, all of these curveballs, what you hear in the meetings in recent time are people who are confused. They are not being led. The previous chairman, his meetings averaged 60 to 90 minutes. The county's business got done in a fast and efficient manner, and the board members got out. It is supposed to be a part-time job for a board member, but just you see them trapped into these meetings, and my heart breaks for all 24 of them.
Well, you bring up some great points, which as we continue into the remainder of this segment and then the next 24-minute segment, we're going to touch on that. But back to, CEO and running a business and what you just said, it's all about execution, time management, setting agenda, and what I always like to say is be brief, be clear, be gone. And as the chair, if I'm setting the agenda, I'm being clear. We're going to go through the agenda and be brief, and then we're going to get all the objectives done in an efficient time and be gone.
Yes.
Right? And that's exactly right. And to your point again, I've had board members say this, they loathe some of these big meetings because they are going way too long for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, she tries to push her agenda in, and quite frankly, and I'm being totally honest with the audience, I am not an expert in the Robert's Rules of Law. I'd like to be. I'm thinking about taking some courses as a citizen, so I know what's going on, but I've been told that she goes out of bounds, that she should be leading the agenda and guiding that through good collaboration instead of her own comments and opinions. But anyway, I'm going off track. Before we have a break, and I want to go back to what you just said. Time management is so important. If you're up at 4:45, and I can tell you through years of interviewing people, that is a great core competency. There's so much data and so many research. People that get up at 3:45, 4 a.m. and get to work, their productivity is so much higher than the average person. Most people are getting up sleepy at 8:15 in the morning.
Yeah.
Like, no wonder you're not getting anything done. Anyway, that always would tell me that you know how to plan, you know how to prioritize, which leads me to my next question for your listeners. What's your leadership style, right? Share with the audience what your leadership style is.
Yeah, it's a great question. In fact, I wrote a book. I'm a published author, and I wrote a book on leadership, and it was just published maybe 8 months ago, and it's called 12 Talent Leadership. And my wife and I published a marriage book in about 2018, And it was an award-winning book. And when I finished that book and got it out, I had a calling to write a leadership book. And as I sat down at that time, the topic was overwhelming. It took a good 6-7 years just to get my thoughts organized on how I would delve into this. And so there isn't, in my opinion, there isn't a single way to describe just a person as a leader. If I were to make an attempt, it would be a strategic visionary. And what that means are my weaknesses are administration and tasks, all the way down to the doing level. And my wife likes to say I am a super delegator. In fact, she hates it at times, watching me just take tasks and fire them out to people. I look at it as it's my responsibility to bless other people with the opportunity to take something on and go do something great with it. And so I like to dream forward. That's a big part of this whole thing. When I have an opportunity in front of me, a good opportunity, bad, doesn't matter. I like to take the time to just dream about what are the possibilities, what's the timing, who are the players, who would be involved in solving this type of problem. And I take a very unemotional, logical approach to problem solving. And I'm also, it's a balance. I'm not in a hurry. Solutions tend to come quick because a lot of problems aren't that difficult to solve. We as humans, we make them difficult. But the reality is most problems can be addressed and solved in short order. And so I like to be the person that helps others succeed. Something of a guidance counselor. You know, my job for the people on my leadership team for the software company, my job is to make sure that they are successful. If every leader on my leadership team is successful, I'm successful by default. It just happens. So I'm not driven for Lance Bell success. I am driven to make sure everyone I work with is successful. And if they're successful, I'll be successful every time.
No, and again, love what you said. And if I was running for the Kane County chairman of the board position, that would be my sentiments exactly. How can I get the most effectiveness out of the Democrats and the Republicans? Because at the end of the day, let's take these labels that we have to put on. I'm a Republican. I'm a Democrat. Listen, I know people on both sides that are complete idiots. And I know people on both sides that actually are like rock stars that, you know what, if I can collaborate with you and we're going to maybe disagree on some issues, but on the big issues for Kane County,
right,
like a balanced budget, like making sure that we keep the Kane County citizens' taxes at bay, that's a good thing. And so you're right, it is collaboration. The other thing that I really enjoyed, which in my own leadership life, delegation is huge. And many people look at delegation as like, well, you are skirting your responsibilities. That's the exact opposite. A great manager, a great leader is going to delegate. The other opportunity you see is when people, again, you're giving me this task. Now all of a sudden you're showing confidence that I can run this committee or I can steward this particular project. So you get to see the board members or the employees, if you will, take on a task. And when people have success and then they're encouraged on the back end, that's a recipe for rocket fuel. Mark, by the way, how much time do we have in our first segment?
Well, we're done, buddy. But we're gonna
Because I had another power question and I knew it was going to take some time.
We've overshot the first segment, but that's all right. We'll come back with the second segment in just a couple of minutes. Call 847-931-1410. It's Kane County Speaks. It's 9:35 on this beautiful Thursday morning.
A recent Gallup poll indicated that 38% of Americans are putting off health care because of financial concerns, the highest ever recorded. I'm Dr. Bob Martin, here to serve you every Sunday afternoon from 1 to 4. Millions of Americans are seeking health advice that will not cost an arm and a leg, so I offer health tips and advice absolutely free. Listen to my show, Sunday afternoons from 1 to 4 right here on WRMN, AM 1410 and 96.7 FM, the voice of the Valley and the home of a radio shopping show.
Come on out to the Country Donuts, that is, at Route 20 and Nestler Road. They're always open. Donuts are made daily using only the finest ingredients to ensure freshness. Their huge variety of donuts offers something to please everyone. Country Donuts doesn't stop at offering you the best donuts. Enjoy a delicious breakfast sandwich or stop in for lunch and try a bowl of their famous chili. Need a larger or special donut order for your office? Call 847-488-1900.
Listen up. Four Corners Radio is the new addition to WRMN's exciting lineup of highly informative talk radio programs. The show is hosted by William Pellerinos, a nationally recognized DUI expert witness and author of the book DUIs Decoded. The discussions on this program will focus on legal issues, food and restaurants, arts and entertainment, and diabetic health information. William Pellerinos brings on a variety of guests that include restaurant chefs, health experts, authors, attorneys, police officers, nurses, and local artists. Listen to Four Corners Radio every Saturday at noon, beginning on Saturday, May 25th, on WRMN. Find out more info on Twitter at Police Project 1 and on Facebook at Pellerinos Police Project. That's Pelarenos Police Project.
The Distance Social, your spot for great craft cocktails with meaningful conversation. Whether you're out entertaining a group or out for a memorable nightcap, the Distance Social is your spot for starting or ending the perfect evening. Located at 314 North River Street in beautiful East Dundee, Illinois. Go the distance and find your social at the Distance Social.
Looking to get your fingers on some delicious grub? Look no further than Sticky Fingers in Carpentersville. Family owned and operated, Sticky Fingers specializes in chicken, fish, and shrimp, which you can choose to have dusted with flavor or doused in the sauce of your choice. Sticky Fingers strives to provide flavorful food with fresh, locally sourced ingredients. Sticky Fingers personally invites you to stop by and try one of their scrumptious dishes today.
For exceptional home-cooked meals, visit the longest family-owned restaurant in Elgin. Paul's Family Restaurant at Lawrence and McLean takes pride in their fresh daily specials like steaks, fish, pasta, soups, and more. Paul's fresh buttermilk pancakes and breakfast skillets are phenomenal. As you walk in, you can't help but notice owner Elaine's wonderful eye for detail. The toughest decision you'll have to make is what size leftover box to take home. Call 847-695-8687.
The weather is getting better, and we know it's the time when ladders and DIYers come out. Before you start any new outdoor projects, ComEd wants you to know that electricity can jump from a power line to you and the tools you're using. So maintain a safe distance from any power lines. You can also call ComEd at 1-800-EDISON-1 to have those power lines de-energized the next time you do any type of work around them. Stay smart, stay safe, stay back. ComEd, powering lives.
All right, it is time for the continuation of Kane County Speaks here on this beautiful Thursday morning. As we welcome back Brian Anderson with his guest Lance Bell as we talk about Kane County, the issues and the candidates. Welcome back, Brian.
Hey, Mark, thanks. And, you asked me a question during the break, and I said, no, I want to keep going. But in the last 10 seconds, I've changed my mind. You said that we received a comment from one of the great listeners. Can you share the comment, and I'll go ahead and respond?
Yeah. Sherry says, you failed to mention that a part of the meetings lasting so much longer is exactly why they want to curtail the public comments segment at the meetings. Too many people are trying to talk for too long.
So while I would share with the listener, thank you for your candid feedback, the flip side of that is if a 6-hour meeting and we cut out the public comments, it only becomes a 5.5-hour meeting. So we've missed the entire point that the leadership, the person leading and driving the meetings, they're the ones that are in control, because What I would also encourage your listener to do is go on the Kane County government website, look at the vision and mission statement, and I reflect on that all the time with the board members. It's about being transparent, and we're accountable to we the people. And as I said yesterday when I spoke in the executive board meeting, when you squelch the public, we the people and our opinions, they don't get a chance to listen to their constituents. So at the end of the day, 30 minutes to hear constituents is not an obstacle or a roadblock. And so while I appreciate her comment, there is a bigger second right answer. Anyway, back to Lance. We could talk all day. I want to get a little bit more pointed here. So you're running for Kane County chair, and let's say you win. Well, you're going to be going into leading a board, and I'll use you as your CEO of your company. You're leading and coaching men and women that they're already currently working with you and for you, and you probably in most cases was part of the selection process and interviewed them. So you walk in, and here's my question. Give me an example of you leading a group of people that are already in the position. So I paint the picture. You're in. It's January 2025. There's a group of the Democrats and even some of the Republicans that don't know you. How do you lead people in the right direction that you don't know?
Yeah, I think at first it starts with, I don't care about labels. I mean, really, I care about talent. I care about passion. And you said this earlier. There are great people on both sides of the aisle, and there are people that shouldn't be there.
Yes.
They should move on to other things in life, right? So finding people who are passionate and effective is where it starts. And one of the responsibilities of the chairman position is to select the people who will be leading all of these committees.
Yes.
And so I've been told the current selection process is politically motivated, that highly talented, educated, and experienced people have been removed from or excluded from consideration on committees where they would excel. And there's no point in getting into names, but that's on its face. And then if you, as an objective voter, were to take the time to just watch the committee meetings on YouTube,
right,
you would see which ones are being led right and which ones aren't being led at all.
No, and you're right. And I asked that question because, and you can appreciate this being a leader and a business owner and a coach, it's easy to fire somebody, right? Anybody can do that. You don't need a high school diploma. You don't need a college degree. You're fired. A real leader comes in and goes, okay, here's the talent in front of me, right? Let me seek first to understand. Let me listen to learn. Let me get a sense of where they're coming from in their background. You know what? What a great committee you could be on here, and it would help excel. And to your point, I know firsthand that there are several Democrats on her board and several Republicans that they are not in the right seat on the right committee where they can do the best work. Here it is for the 300 and some thousand voters in Kane County. How can we do the very best for Kane County? I don't know. By having the right leader, delegating, and then determining what people could be on the best board chair committee, because they're all on different committees. Most of the board members are anywhere between 4 and 5 committees. My question would be, do I have the right person on the right committee? And if I do, we're going to keep it sailing. And if I don't, I'm going to make some chess moves.
Absolutely.
And the whole board is going to excel. Now, let me move on, which is in the spirit of the last question. And I'm looking for an example this time. Give me an example of you leading a group through collaboration.
Well, there's many examples. I mean, the day-to-day in the software business, I'll just take that and set that aside because that's obvious. One of the things I'm passionate about is marriage. My wife and I, the nonprofit that we have is Christian Leadership Ministries, and its specific purpose is to enhance marriages in the Fox Valley area. So we've created a series of workshops. They're 5-hour workshops called Body, Mind, and Soul. And one of the last workshops we did, it was second to last before we got into the 2020 incident, was out in DeKalb. We had 50 marriages. We had 100 people in a room for 5 hours on a Saturday morning. And the opportunity to speak to, essentially you have two audiences, right? You have the husbands and you have the wives that are in that room. and to take people through exploring, understanding their role, different exercises, group exercises at the table, and then exercises where the husband and the wife would go off and have to do things together, leading people so that they understand the institution, the purpose, and how to have the most excellent marriage possible. That's leadership. And that's that combination of passion and leadership. Now, how did we get on marriages? It's actually a very simple answer. The first 6 years of my marriage were miserable. I was a horrible leader. And it took about year 7 for God to get a hold of me and make it clear, the marriage is about me and my leadership. Your wife often is a reflection of you as a leader. And when you're a horrible leader, you're going to have a horrible marriage. So when I came to that level of awareness and started working on my own marriage, that opportunity to serve other marriages with what I had learned became natural. So this goes back to 1998. We started our first marriage class in a Sunday school realm. And since then, today we have a nonprofit. And today we work with couples who are getting married, pre-marriage mentoring. We work with couples in crisis who are on the edge of divorce, and every flavor in between. Individual setting, group setting, couple setting. And so we parlay that. It's leadership and it's passion together in order to serve other people.
Well, I tell you, what I've just heard, you and I could talk about that subject for the rest of the week, okay? You're exactly right. And it goes back to this. If you can't lead yourself first and foremost, you can't lead others, okay? That's a pretty simple concept.
Amen.
And most people don't get that. And I would tell you that for your listeners, and myself included, marriage is a great test tube. Right? You put two people together with two different personalities and two different backgrounds and two different upgrades. Go, okay, leave, cleave, and become one flesh. Okay, good luck with that, right? And so to have a good marriage, you have to be intentional. To have a good team as a leader, as a coach, as a mentor, you have to be intentional. You have to be able to work through tough situations, and I see it played out at the board. When there's good collaboration and effective communication, and we can agree to disagree agreeably, and then we can take, as you said earlier, take the feelings out of it and go, how can this affect our constituents? Never lose fact. That's why you're there, Vern Tepe, is for your citizens, your constituents in Elgin, not for your personal agenda, right? And so you see it played out all the time. Now, here's another, as I've asked many people, what is the big three? What's the big three of the Kane County chairman? I've been told, okay, Brian, first and foremost, and you alluded to it in the first segment, setting agenda. And Kane County setting the agenda is the annual budget. And I know for a fact, doing my own due diligence, that under the last several chairs, that was priority number one. They got it on time and ready to go. And what I've witnessed here is it's dragged out in June, July, August, September. Basically, last year, I think it was right before Thanksgiving, 2 or 3 days before everybody's taken off to see family and friends, they actually got it done. The second one, and we've talked about this throughout this interview session, is managing morale. Right? It's easy to manage people that you like and we're all like-minded. The challenge of a good leader is to manage morale of whole different personalities, which you certainly get at the Kane County Board. And then lastly, fostering best practices, which you kind of alluded to that. So share with me and the listeners budget. How would you address that and then manage morale and then foster best practices? That's a big question.
Yeah, so let's start with budget. So again, going back to the predecessor, I asked the previous chairman a question. How often was the public at any of the meetings expressing anything about any topic whatsoever? And the answer I got was rarely. Rarely was the public motivated to come in and speak about anything that was happening in the county. And you can see that as a reflection of the leadership at that time. If the county is doing what the county is supposed to be doing, very rarely you're going to have people coming in and getting upset about things. There's a lot to be upset about, and this isn't one or two people that are coming to these meetings. It's dozens, sometimes hundreds. I mean, I was at one in person a couple of months ago where the overflow. In fact, I was on time but excluded because the top room was filled, the overflow room in the bottom level was filled. Then they said you can wait outside, you can watch it on your phone. I watch a lot of meetings on YouTube. I don't have to be there in person. And so with the budget in particular, the focus the last couple of years has been on one thing, and that's increasing revenues. And that sounds good unless you're a taxpayer, because it's increasing pain is what that is. There's been very little, if any, consideration given to reducing expenses. There's the P&L or the income statement for a business or a government is the same.
Yes.
There are far more lines on the expense side to control than there are on the revenue side.
That's correct.
So increasing revenue is a cop-out. We're already penalized with property taxes. The statistics you see, and it's kind of a challenge for a county at the county level, because you have property, you have sales, you have the school district is the biggest pounding when we pay our property tax bill. And then you have the community college has their districts. And so when you look at the hodgepodge of taxing authorities in Kane County, you can live on one side of Kane and pay one effective rate, another side of Kane and pay a higher effective rate. But when you look at the county as a whole, we're in the top, let's get this right. We're in the bottom 7 of counties in the entire United States with the pain that we have right now, the current tax burden, and they want to make it higher. That's, in my opinion, that's obscene. The focus has to be on reducing expenses, staying within our means, and not elevate. We get too much money now compared to the other 3,000 plus counties that are out in the United States.
Right.
That's why people leave Kane County and they move to Nashville. So working on that side of the budget is huge. The timing aspect, Brian, you said, is also important.
Yes.
It's not just the timing of the budget. It's the timing of everything. Let's take the compensation. There's a state law where if you're going to increase politicians' compensation, you have to do it, I believe it's 180 days prior to an election.
Correct.
And so it was 2 weeks before the 180-day window was going to close.
Right.
I actually listened to that first committee meeting. And so trying to ramrod through, you could say, is tactical, strategic, or incompetence. And I'm seeing nothing that leads me to believe that any of the agenda items are based on strategy or tactics. It's all just based on, oh, look, we have a deadline. Let's now react because we have a deadline. The earlier comment, squelching freedom of speech. Again, that's another thing to me personally. It is obscene. If elected chair, I welcome people to come to the meetings. Instead of hiding behind the back table, I would be out front introducing myself to people before the meeting, and I care about what people think. Don't always agree, obviously,
right,
but I want people to be heard. And just the idea that they would be reducing the number of minutes or the speaking time, the number of speakers, that's wrong. It's wrong-headed.
Well, you're right. And, I guess, and I don't want to go off track, but they need to change their vision and mission statement, because it's very clear. Not Brian's words, it's their words that they crafted. We're accountable to we the people. The best way to be accountable to we the people is to hear your constituents come and make some comments. And, the good leader is going to sit there, right, when things are good, bad, negative, neutral, and take it in and go, thank you for that. And then they're going to go back and go, how can we work on that? Now, as we're getting closer with time, you're running for the Kane County chair position. Some data points that I've looked at, 46% of the citizens that live and vote in Kane County now, they're independents. What's your message to that group if they're listening today? You're registered as a Republican, and I'm no political analyst, but typically you go to the poll and, okay, I'm a Republican, I'm going to vote for a Republican. Well, I'm interested in the people in Kane County going, they need to know who Lance Bell is. They need to vote for this guy, not because of his party affiliation, even though that's important to a certain degree, but what's the message to the independents?
Well, I guess the first thing I would say is I was an independent for a very long period of time. I left, when I was young, I was a Democrat. I gained awareness. I became a Republican. This is the late 80s with Ronald Reagan. And then was disgusted with George Herbert Walker Bush. Actually voted for Ross Perot. And so
So did I.
Yay! So, I mean, there's the entitled class of the Republican parties, and then there's the people who care class. And today I think they're often described as grassroots.
Yes.
And so I was a conservative independent until September of last year. And that's when, and now I say that, you look at my voting record, I would walk in, and in Illinois you get your choice. I vote every time there's an election, every single time. Consolidated, the general, and the primary. And so as I walked into every primary over the last 15 years, they say, do you want a D or do you want an R? And just for me, I'm voting policies. I'm voting my values. So between those two choices, there's no choice. So every time I voted Republican, and there is no such thing, obviously, as a registered Republican or a registered Democrat. They just look at what vote you do. Now with permanent vote by mail, you checkbox.
Right.
I want it in the mail, a Republican ballot or a Democrat ballot. So it's a little bit more, but it's still not a formal declaration per se.
But the message for the independents listening, what would you say? Why Lance Bell, why I would be a good candidate?
If you want pragmatic, practical leadership, if you want the county government doing what the county government should be doing on a more effective basis, that's what you'll get with me. If you want stadiums converted into gymnastics, county use laws put together in the middle of the night down in Springfield that have nothing to do with county government, if you want shenanigans, you'll just reelect who we currently have.
Well, thank you for that. And as we wrap up, and I may have you back on as the season and the segments go. But before we leave, I know you're doing some great things around Kane County. You've got this Engage Kane. Tell the listeners where they can go and the time we have left. Engage Kane. What exactly does that mean? And we got 1 minute for you to share that.
That's awesome. So we've got events that are happening all over Kane County. Next Monday night, we have one that's happening in West Dundee, and these are neighbors meeting neighbors. It's just, this isn't a political thing. It's not paid for by a PAC or by a political campaign. If you go to the website, engagekane.com, you can register there. These are free events, and these are the opportunities for people to come in, get free food. There's almost always a cash bar, so you can grab a glass of wine, sit down, and you'll hear different people from Kane County share different ways that you can get involved. There's lots of people in Kane County who are sick of the way our county and our nation is headed, and they want to do something about it, but they don't know what the options are. And there are a lot of ways that you can get involved and help make a difference. Brian, as we close, we have a social contract. We're supposed to leave this country better off for the next generation. We failed. The current generation of teenagers and 20-year-olds, they can't buy a house today.
Right.
We have made the latest generation in a situation, we placed them where it's the worst it's ever been, and that's obscene.
Lance, we could talk all day long. Thank you, Mark, for this.
Thanks.
And I hope your listeners are walking away knowing a little bit more about Lance Bell as he continues to ring the bell throughout Kane County the next 5.5 months. Thanks, Lance.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, guys. All right, Kane County Speaks returns in 2 weeks here on WRMN. Brian Kilmeade comes your way next. Stick around.
Driving as well as other traffic violations. Between 2012 and 2021, approximately 32,000 lives were lost in crashes involving distracted drivers. Everyone has the potential for distracted driving crashes, but those between the ages of 16 and 24 are especially at risk.
Leo.
And we're back in third quarter planning. Adams, his quarterback.